Asia Wilson's just a big bully. Look at this. Throws Lexi Hall on the ground. Everything she does is illegal. Look at this one. A moving screen and then pushes Lexi Hall. You think they ever call a foul on Asia Wilson?
The Las Vegas Aces came out swinging with elbows, flops, and cheap shots. But the Indiana Fever didn't flinch. Every time Ajay Wilson pushed or Vegas tried to shove, Indiana responded with pace, aggression, and sheer resilience. What Vegas saw as intimidation turned into desperation. And when Kelsey Mitchell silenced the arena with big shot after big shot, it wasn't just points. It was revenge. This isn't just about a win. It's about how the Fever exposed dirty play and turned Vegas's arrogance against them. And what exactly did Lexi Hall say after being on the receiving end of most of Ajay Wilson's dirty plays? Comment Fever Show to show your support for the Fever, despite all the adversity thrown against them. Let's go. This was supposed to be a night all about Ajay Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed reminded the Aces how tough this playoff run will be.
It was supposed to be a night all about Ajay Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed reminded the Aces how tough this playoff run will be.
The Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73 to take.
Hours before tip-off, the spotlight in Las Vegas was on A.A. Wilson holding her MVP trophy. It was supposed to be a night of celebration for the Aces, a reminder to the rest of the league that this was their time, their series, and their crown to defend. But by the time the final horn sounded, that trophy presentation felt more like a distraction than a triumph. The shine of the moment dimmed quickly once the game began, because everything the Aces thought would be easy turned out to be anything but.
And Ajay Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish. There was a small little patch there in the third quarter. We started saying, are the Aces gonna come back? But Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims said, no, they're not going to come back. Not at all.
Coming in, the Aces were handed the label of heavy favorites. Media chatter made it sound like Indiana barely deserved to share the floor. That script was set long before they even left the locker room. Vegas had the champions, the star power, the streak. Indiana, they had a roster missing 6 players thanks to injuries. Caitlin Clark couldn't play. Sophie Cunningham was out. Sydney Coulson was sidelined. And the list didn't stop there. For most experts, the matchup seemed unfair. A battle already decided. And that smug confidence trickled right down to the Vegas bench, where head coach Becky Hammond had gone on record, reminding everyone that the Fever hadn't even seen the real Aces yet. The tone was clear. This was supposed to be a statement game.
You actually just referenced it twice. It is Indiana. Dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
That they haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when we were at a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what? We'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and take care of business.
But while Vegas basted in all that pregame buildup, the Fever were treated like a footnote. You could hear it in the way analysts talked about them. Indiana was an afterthought, just the latest obstacle for the Aces to brush aside on their quest to another title. And honestly, that worked out perfectly for the Fever, because when nobody expects you to win, you play free. You don't feel pressure. You take it off the table completely. And that freedom showed the second the ball went up.
But on the court, the Fever crashed the party. Kelsey Mitchell dropped a playoff career-high 34 points to spoil the night with an 89-73 win.
In the second half, I just felt like our physicality and our pursuit was not there. Like, we died on screens. You have to have second and third efforts. Even if you know you might be beat, you still have to try hard to get back into the play, and I don't think we tried.
Instead of caving to the noise, Indiana hit Vegas with pace right away. The ball zipped around, shots dropped, and the Aces, for all their swagger, looked a half-step slow. Suddenly, it wasn't Indiana carrying the pressure. It was Las Vegas, the two-time champs who were supposed to roll, now forced into a fight they weren't expecting. And it's amazing how quickly arrogance starts to look like panic when the underdog refuses to fold. By the end of the night, the story everyone had ignored was front page. 72% of teams who claim Game 1 in a best-of-5 end up winning the series. That little upset just flipped the math completely. And the Aces, rattled on their own floor, were already showing signs of frustration they couldn't hide.
Hall was getting pushed all game. Look at that. Like, elbowed, pushed, but guess who fell? That's an illegal screen. She leans into Lexi Hall, pushes her. Look at this. Pushes Lexi Hall down. Like, I can't take this crap. I'm sick of watching it over and over. That's a moving screen. And then pushes her again. Look at that. You can't do that. They didn't call any. This is the only one they called a foul. She straight pushed Kelsey Mitchell.
The moment Indiana refused to collapse, the tone of the game changed. The Aces stopped playing sharp basketball and leaned into something uglier. You could see it almost immediately. Rather than sticking to their offense, rather than trusting their pace and ball movement, they shifted into shoving, jawing, and desperation. What started as a celebration of dominance turned into the league's top team scrambling for shortcuts.
But then Aaliyah Boston swings her elbows around and makes a shot, but no, she can't do it. She's a Fever, an Indiana Fever. She said, that's a flop. That's what Caitlin said. Here we go. A'ja Wilson. Look at her trying to flop to get a call. Nobody touch you. And this is the biggest bullcrap of the game. So Kelsey Mitchell goes in for a layup. A'ja Wilson shows them their lip, so they review it. Ever see an Indiana Fever player get a review when they're called for a foul and they zoom in with a microscope and call it technical? They called it technical on Kelsey.
A'ja Wilson set the tone in the worst way possible. Instead of leading with skill, she tried to impose herself physically, and not in the way that usually wins games. She threw elbows away from the ball, jammed her body into players after the whistle, and on at least 2 transition plays gave shavis that had nothing to do with blocking a shot. The flops were just as obvious, falling back like she'd been hit by a truck when replays showed little more than basic contact. At one point, she outright hooked a player's arm on a rebound attempt, then threw herself to the ground as if she'd been fouled. Those antics stood out because they were less about competing and more about grasping for control.
A'ja Wilson. Look at that foul they called for her. Yeah, saved her. That's some bullcrap. I love Aaliyah Boston. Great job today playing defense. Look at that. Another foul. Bailed out by the refs. I get pissed off. This is the worst one. They call this a jump ball. How is that a jump ball? Nobody even had possession. Aaliyah Boston, that's anything is over the back.
Jackie Young threw her weight around on screens, laying hits that felt more like football blocks than basketball cuts. Players away from the ball caught hips and shoulders they couldn't see coming, all under the disguise of physical play. The whole thing slowed the rhythm down, but it didn't shake Indiana.
Stop Kelsey Mitchell, because from what I just saw, they had no answer for her. Kirsten Bell, line right up, smacked. Jackie Young, step right up, torched. Chelsea Gray, torched. Jewel Lloyd, torched. Nobody could hang with Kelsey Mitchell as she goes off.
Kelsey, Mitchell was the sharpest answer to the A's antics. She poured in 34 points, while barely missing, slicing through their defense whenever they tried to turn it into a brawl. Vegas could shove her after a drive. They could jaw her all game, and she still kept hitting dagger jumpers. Every basket was like a reminder Vegas might win the fights after the whistle, but they couldn't keep up where it actually mattered. 4. All the MVP trophies and championship banners hanging over in the Aces camp. Not a single player had an offensive night like Mitchell's.
That time, keeping the pivot foot alive and going strong side for Wilson.
Mitchell this time finds a lane to the basket. Inside to Turner. Nice look from Mitchell, which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of...
He wasn't alone either. Odyssey Sims looked like the veteran who had been waiting for this exact moment. Her drives into the paint came fearless. Her hands were everywhere on defense, and she steadied the whole group when the game tilted toward ugly. You could see her talking teammates through possessions, slowing the pace when Vegas wanted chaos, then breaking them down. The next trip with a burst to the rim. That balance, that refusal to match cheap shots with more cheap shots kept Indiana focused.
Good anticipation there by Breonna Turner. She's been on a couple WNBA all defensive teams, and she has really been key for them on that end of the floor in these playoffs.
Sims, yet again.
That's a tough matchup.
Which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple in the regular season in Asia. In the entire league. And Sims, they gave her just that.
Natasha Howard and Breonna Turner both battling inside with Wilson in company. Didn't let the physicality push them off their game. They stood their ground, rotated cleanly, and made life miserable for the Aces. It wasn't flashy defense. It was discipline, the kind that exposes a frustrated team trying shortcuts. And then there was Lexi Hall. She might not fill the highlight reels the same way, but her defense on Jackie Young was brutal for Vegas, holding her in check, making her work for every shot, and finishing with a plus 24 plus minus, the best of the night. That's not luck. That's impact you can measure.
Tipped by Sims, so 9 seconds to shoot.
Hull's done a nice job on Jackie Young early in this game. Jackie likes to go north to south. She's made her play east to west, has not given her an angle to the bucket or to the rim.
And that was one of the things that was talked about to make Jackie move laterally. She's so dangerous. We gotta hurry. Chelsea gets it inside to Young. Rebound by Howard.
The Fever didn't just survive a game designed to knock them off balance. They embarrassed the Aces in front of their own fans by staying composed. And while that was sweet enough, the most devastating blow was still coming when Aaliyah Boston went head-to-head with the league's MVP. On the same day A.A. Wilson was handed the league's MVP trophy. Aaliyah Boston flipped the script and turned her into the most frustrated player on the floor. Wilson had the cameras, the crowd, the stage. But when the game actually mattered, it was Boston who controlled the paint. Every time Wilson tried to get position, Boston was their first, bodying up, forcing collisions and making her fight for every single touch. It wasn't about stopping her once or twice. It was possession after possession of suffocating defense that left the so-called unstoppable scorers searching for answers.
I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, her missing layup after layup after layup. They want to talk about Caitlin Clark missing a three-pointer from half court while she got people falling into her legs. But nobody wants to talk about A'ja Wilson looking like Angel Reese, missing point-blank layups all game long.
So Wilson finished shooting just 6 for 22. For someone celebrated hours earlier as the best player in the league, that stat line was brutal. And it wasn't by accident. Boston, along with Brianna Turner and Natasha Howard, executed a plan that clogged the lane and cut off Wilson's comfort spots. Instead of easy spins and drop steps, she was met with strength and length at every angle. The Aces could not get their usual free-flowing rhythm because the Fever's interior defense shut off the faucet. Shots were contested, rebounds were ripped away. And Wilson, despite trying to force her way into rhythm, never found it.
That assumed.
Regardless of people think we aren't going to win, people think we're not going to come back, like the game's never over until that final buzzer. So for us, just continuing to believe, continuing to trust in the process. But yeah, that game was really exciting, and I think that just showed us that we really are capable of whatever we want.
The contrast between the two stars could not have been clearer. While Boston played with poise, staying within the game plan and not overextending, Wilson grew visibly frustrated. She leaned into flops for fouls, threw her hands up at referees, and forced contested jumper after contested jumper. And yet, Las Vegas didn't adapt. Coach Becky Hammond, instead of crediting Indiana's defense, sidestepped the obvious postgame. She pointed to missed opportunities and miscues, but never acknowledged that Boston had flat out won the head-to-head battle. That refusal to take accountability only highlighted how much control Indiana's front court had seized. There was a certain karmic balance to all of it. Wilson got her flowers in the morning, but by nightfall, she was walking off her own court after being held in check by a second-year center playing in her first playoff semifinal. The difference wasn't just physical strength, it was composure. Boston kept her cool, adjusted when needed, and never allowed the moment or the opponent to dictate her approach. That calm presence became the separation point between a team that prepared and a champion that assumed
And stole home court.
We've got to keep the main thing, and that is us playing to a standard of basketball that we want to have as an Indiana Fever organization and franchise. We've got to keep our layers, the outside, the people in our building, and the people in our locker room. And the thing I'm just so proud of with this group is it doesn't matter who's on the floor, it doesn't matter who's on our roster. They give each other the freedom to be themselves. They empower one another to be themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And every time we've had a change, every time we've brought someone in, every time we've had rotational changes, they're for each other. They live the we over the me. And when you have that, it just gives you opportunities to do really special.
Inside the Fever's locker room, the celebration captured that energy. And when Lexi Hull, who had been thrown down and shoved throughout the game, finally spoke, her words echoed everything the team had just shown. We're capable of whatever we want. And that's the exact question going into Game 2. Can Indiana take this same blueprint and break Vegas on their own floor again? One game down, 2 wins more to go, and history says that opens the door wide for the Indiana Fever. In a best of 5, nearly 3 out of 4 teams that win game 1 go on to take the series. That means this wasn't just a good road win. It was a seismic shift in how this semifinal looks. The Aces came in riding 18 wins in their last 19 games, but that momentum died the second Indiana walked into their building and stole home court.
And the response you had when they made a couple runs late?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, our group has seen it all. We wanted to come in and be the aggressor right away to make sure that we were dictating on the defensive end and we were dictating from a pace standpoint. They're champions for a reason. We knew that they were going to make runs. They made a big one in the third and we responded with a big one.
The Fever didn't just steal a win in Vegas. They completely flipped the story. On the night Ajay Wilson was crowned MVP, Indiana humbled the loss Vegas Aces and claimed their first semifinal victory in over 10 years. Think about that. A shorthanded roster walked into the toughest arena in the league and left with history. Remember, teams who take game 1 in a best of 5 usually control the series. So, this isn't just an upset. It could be the turning point. The question now is simple. Can the Fever keep riding this wave? Because if they do, everything changes. Comment Fever Show to show your support for the Fever despite all the adversity thrown against them. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen and we will see you in the next